Welcome to Walking on the Weene Side as part of It Matters Radio. Today, my guest is businessman and author Abe March. Abe currently lives in Germany and he has had a career in business spanning the globe. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in that globe. Welcome, Abe. Why don't you tell
Thank
the
you.
audience a little about yourself and your background to start with?
Well, as brief as possible, I'm an American born in Pennsylvania and became involved internationally with a firm. It took me to Canada and then to Greece, to Germany, and then to the Middle East.
Mhm.
And my experience with various cultures has influenced my outlook on life and also with current events.
Mhm.
And living in Germany, of course, right now with Trump as president and having his roots from here, you would think that there would be more support. But the embarrassment is felt by everybody, including myself, that I really don't want to identify as being an American because that's an embarrassment.
Well, you can go back in time and say, well, I'm a Pennsylvanian.
Yeah, there you go.
Before we get into that, I do want to let the audience know that you actually have written a memoir about your experiences as an international businessman. And tell them a little bit, just quickly, about the book.
Well, it begins uh, the major event when I was headquartered in Beirut, Lebanon, and I was there during the beginning and of the Civil War. I left after the 27th ceasefire. There were many ceasefires, and it seems that each ceasefire was gave the opportunity for the opponents to stock up on their
Yeah,
ammunition.
I want to stop you there for a minute. Uh, that's the content of the book, but you haven't told them the name.
Oh, well, the title is First American Back, and that title was from a newspaper article written by a journalist from the UK that I had met at the hotel when I arrived from Jordan, being the first American to come back after the Civil War, and they were really wondering what I was doing there. And I was besieged by various reporters, wanting an interview. They assumed I was with the CIA, and they kept trying to trap me into they would say, "Does the agency move you off?" and things like that. And finally, they were convinced that I was not connected with the government or the CIA or
You were
anything
just
else.
a fool come back to try and rescue your business.
I was
Yeah,
there to try to see what I could salvage
yeah.
from the business, and then things began to change. But yeah, that's part of the book, and also the depression that I went through,
Mhm.
having lost everything and actually contemplating suicide.
Yeah. So, folks,
Uh,
I have read the book, and it's available to you on Amazon, and it's a interesting read, and that's how I know Abe is from uh, the book, and he and I share a publisher for books and All Things That Matter Press. So, Abe, you're now, are you retired or are you still doing business?
no, I'm retired. I'm
Okay.
retired.
And living in Germany. Now, why have you chosen to live in Germany as opposed to coming back to Pennsylvania?
Well, I did go back to Pennsylvania, or came back to the States, and was able to find a job. And I worked for a company that was headquartered in Holland.
Mm-hmm.
It was Fokker Aircraft, and I was the procurement manager for North America for supporting 120 aircraft that were still flying. But to why I came to Germany, when I got married, I was with the United States Air Force stationed in Ramstein. And my wife, that's where I met my wife, and she said, I will go anywhere that you want to go, but please promise me when we retire that we return to my Heimat, my homeland. And I kept that promise. And that was fortunate because we've had medical problems and so on, and with health care, it has actually saved our lives. If I had been in the States, I'd either be dead or destitute at this point. I follow very carefully what's going on in the States with regarding health care, and I'm very supportive of all the efforts for that, even though I'm not involved.
Right.
But I do have relatives actually that are experiencing the problems that many have.
Mm-hmm. And it is a major problem. Now, Germany, of course, you have single payer, right?
Oh yeah. It's I had a business here. I was the president of a subsidiary company building PCs that established a company for them here in Germany. And when they went out of business, I chose to remain. But in the meantime, because the health care that I had for my employees, that gave me an edge in that I didn't have to go on a private basis, that I could get the public coverage,
Mm-hmm.
which I presently enjoy.
Mm-hmm. And it's good coverage, as it is in general in the single payer countries. The coverage is very good. It may not be as good as somebody as rich as Donald Trump might be able to get for himself, but it is a lot better than what the average American can get and afford
Oh,
to
yeah.
pay for.
And it's so very simple. I have a card. It looks like a credit card. It has my picture on it, and it has all the information, who the insurer is. Whenever I go to a doctor or a hospital, whatever, I just hand them the card. I don't have to. I never get a bill.
Mm-hmm.
My coverage is 100%. 100%. It's no copay. It's 100%. And that also now applies after I reach a certain age for pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
And the medication alone, some of that my wife gets, would really be disastrous if I had to pay for that.
Sure. Now, when you get that medical care, does that cover all the things that Americans are used to, like naturopaths and chiropractic and supplements, or is it just traditional
No,
allopathic?
it's when I say total coverage, it covers anything medical.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So
complete.
it's really, yeah. So why do you think that Germany can do that for its citizens and residents such as yourself, and the United States can't?
My guess is that most of the insurers, it's sickness for profit instead of really health care,
Mm-hmm.
from what I gather. Here, the doctor makes the decision, not the insurer.
Mm-hmm.
He makes a decision. If he decides that I need a specialist, he gives me what they call an Überweisung, a transfer slip to that particular specialist or that particular hospital, and there's no questions asked. I mean, you get it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the thing is that there are no insurers, health insurers, that are in financial straits. Matter of fact, I received a check a couple years back because they had so much profit
Mm-hmm.
that they sent it back to the people like myself, the insurers.
Mm-hmm.
And what I pay is a percentage based on my income. And since I'm on Social Security, it's very little.
So
So
basically,
if
you
you
pay a
make
small tax, the same way Americans pay for their Medicare tax or something like that. But the difference
yeah,
is that you're getting real care for it, whereas,
that's right.
you know, and you don't have to go broke before you can
That,
get the government to kick in.
that's what I meant by when I said if I was in the States, I'd be either dead or destitute because medical bills have put a lot of people bankrupt, loss of homes and things. And I know people personally that went through that.
Yeah, I do too.
Uh,
I do too. Okay,
but
now,
that doesn't happen here. That can't happen here.
okay. So, one of the big reasons I have found for a number of Americans friends of mine, who have emigrated is just that medical care and insurance, medical health insurance, are so much more rationally available in other countries. And they don't, to make believe that somehow those people who are getting that wonderful care at that most expensive hospital on Fifth Avenue represents the typical American is ridiculous. And so this kind of universal single payer system has become adopted throughout most of the first world, with the notable exception of the United States. Now, we're going to come back in a moment. First, we're going to watch a little video, and then we're going to be coming back to talk some more with Abe March. Welcome back to Walking on the Weene Side. Visiting with me today is Abe March, who is across the pond in Germany, and we're talking about lots of things. And I think the next topic I'd like to talk about is the Middle East, partly because Abe has spent a lot of time there, including trying to run businesses and start up businesses. And again, you can read that more about that in his book. Abe, what is your take on? Let's start with the whole Middle East. I mean, is it a salvageable part of the world even?
It's a tough question. Uh, I guess one's perspective has a lot to do with the experience they've had and also with the contacts they have. I receive information from private sources that often conflict to what one receives or hears about on the media. So that also the advantage I have here is that I have access to the media from France, from England, and from other countries, and you hear reports, and then you have CNN International, which I must point out, I'm told is different than
From
what
CNN.
CNN reports to the American audience.
Absolutely.
So media they do appeal to a particular audience, and what is happening may differ from one report to the next.
Well,
So
that's
that
part of why I wanted you to talk a little bit. We're media too. You know, this is an internet-based radio show, and I would like some insight from you how the situation there maybe does differ from what our listeners are hearing day to day on Fox News and MSNBC and whatever.
well, the problem has been in the past and historically a lot to do with religion, and we hear a lot about Muslim versus Christian or versus Judaism or what have you. That still exists. No matter how we try to cover it, it still exists. And there are prejudices, whether we like it or not. With the refugee crisis, things with the Lebanese civil war, with Israel, the Palestinians, all these refugees, and now Syria, the refugees, they had to go somewhere. And Germany opened its doors, probably too wide, and allowed many to come in. And with the open borders now, it created a problem, and they're working now to monitor people crossing the imaginary border, because there are really no borders in that sense, to weed out the terrorists. Uh, with ISIS, they send a lot of people as refugees who are really terrorists, and they're popping up. But it's difficult. Hindsight is showing them where they made mistakes, and they're trying now to make corrections on that. To interview people, and even by the language, they have people to find out if they're really from where they say they're from based on their dialect.
Right.
It's getting to that point, and they have found, and many people. When I say many, there are a number of people that were terrorists, and they've caught them and have either jailed them or sent them back. But that problem continues. It's not going to go away very quickly.
So one thing about taking in people from refugees is that you do have to vet them. It isn't
Oh yes,
you
yes.
can't just accept. Hey, I'm here. I'm a refugee, and of course, one of the projects I've worked on recently is I co-wrote a memoir by a fellow from South Sudan, and it was fascinating because in all of the books that have been written about that whole period, his is the one that he and I wrote is really the one that first honestly talks about the military recruitment of these refugees that went on, and their participation in as soldiers, not as kids, as students. I mean, he was like 7 years old when he was initially brought into this, and the idea was give me a gun and let me kill these. In this case, he was going to kill the Arabs, the Maralan, who were fascinating story, by the way. Anyway, so you mentioned religion and the religious differences, and of course, one of the differences you didn't mention is the one within Islam, which actually, in some ways, is the root cause of more of the tension. Not only within Islam, but also within the Arab world as tribalism. Like the Palestinians are really not much cared for by the rest of the Arab world, which is part of why things have become so terribly difficult in Palestine. But how can the world work to overcome those differences? Is there a way to move forward, do you think?
I think there has to be guidelines. Anyone coming in as a refugee or for whatever reason coming into a country must accept the conditions of that country, the laws. They have to abide by the laws.
Yes.
And this is where the problems come in, whether it's they're wearing a burqa or they have to have certain foods. They come and demand certain foods that will appeal to their palate from the original country. They have to adjust. They have to know how to integrate. And being too accommodating is the problem.
Yeah, we are
You
talking
have
about from the point of view of Germany now accepting, but I'm saying, is there some way that we can address the religious differences of the Middle East and the ethnic differences in the Middle East? How can we, of the first world, the countries like the United States and Germany and Britain and France, how can we help to stop the warfare that is creating this flood of refugees? Wouldn't that be better than just picking out the right refugees to have, to accept?
well, I think we have to have less interference. And I know what I'm going to say now is not going to go over well with a lot of patriots. We stick our nose into areas where we shouldn't. We cannot be the world's policeman, which we say we're not, but we are,
Yeah.
or we try to be.
Yeah.
And if we were to stay out of it, because they're the ones that take revenge. In my book, They Plotted Revenge Against America, I deal with that subject in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when someone is killed in a family, that revenge, to avenge the death of that person,
Mm-hmm.
there's no time limit on that. And eventually, even small children who are indoctrinated that they died because of this country or that person, they're going to eventually find a way to take revenge on it.
Right.
So we have a lot of animosity toward America because of our interference and the things that we've done, going into Iraq as a prime
Oh yeah.
example.
Well, that was an
But
incredible.
now we're involved in Syria. We're involved,
So you think we should just let these countries, like a country like Syria, where you have this civil war going on, we should just back off and let them all kill each other?
to be blunt, yes.
Okay.
If we go in there and we're bombing them, we're killing them. We're killing a lot of innocent people. Who dead is dead. Does it matter who did the killing?
Okay.
And if we're from the outside coming in, we're the ones that get blamed. You don't solve problems by killing. You don't solve problems by war. It just doesn't work. History can back that up. We can say we won. What did you win? You might have won the battle, but in the end, you lost the war. The war goes on, and people don't forget.
Now you're living in Germany, and Germany, there was a major war. You may remember. I was born during it. I'm guessing you were born about that time too.
Right?
And do you believe that the United States in the end didn't really win the Second World War? Or that it
No, I
didn't
don't think
change?
so. I don't think so.
Okay.
Uh, we got involved in it. I think that's it was is set up to have the Pearl Harbor incident so that we would have an excuse to enter the war. But we could not change events that happened. We were involved as a one party to the whole. Whether it was, you had the UK involved, and you had America and other countries involved, and Russia, who we became friends with, and now that they turned out to be the enemy, and as some authors have written, said that we bombed the wrong people. I don't want to get too involved in that, but Hitler had to be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Encouraging people to take out the evil, just like talk about Assad in Syria. Instead of bombing the people, if he's the problem, take him out. Don't kill innocent people. Take Hitler out. And there was a coup to try to get rid of Hitler that didn't work, but it was in the process of working. Uh, the problem with the average citizen at that time, and I know a lot of them. There are people here. I just attended a birthday party of one guy who was in the Hitler Youth during the war. He's turned 89. He lived through this and has his own story, which was written.
We're gonna take a break at this point, and then we're gonna come back and talk some more with Abe about the Hitler Youth, because I think that's a fascinating topic.
Nothing like food and shelter, the comfort of a warm embrace. When families are torn apart by the politics of disgrace, this ain't who we are, or who we're meant to be. Why look down on my fellow man because he thinks different than me? 'Cause this ain't who we are. The future repeats the past. Did we ever learn the lessons? Is our judgment built to last? This ain't who we are, or who we're meant to be. Why look down on my fellow man because he prays different than me? It's better to open my arms than it is to bear those arms. 'Cause this ain't who we are, or who we're meant to be. Why look down on my fellow man when I know better than he? This ain't who we are. to be.
Welcome back to Walking on the Weene Side. Today we're talking with author, international businessman Abe March, and we're talking right now about Hitler. Because Abe lives in Germany, and he knows people who were part of Hitler Youth. By the way, I had a friend who was a member of the Hitler Youth too. That was a pretty universal thing in Germany during the war.
Yeah, there's a book that was translated, edited by myself and my son, Dr. Dwayne March, about Herman Fresh, who lives in this village. He was inducted at 15 years of age. They come into the school and said, you know, this is where you're going to go, report at 15. And I encouraged him to write about his experience, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
So that is now published. It's a very interesting story. Matter of fact, he was in Berlin during the fall of
Is it
Berlin,
available in English?
the final battle there.
Is the book available in English?
Yes, we translated it into English.
And the
Matter of fact,
title is?
find that on Amazon. It's called Herman Fresh on the Way to Siberia.
Okay.
Because they were marching them on the way to Siberia.
Mm-hmm.
That's the title of the book. But it is a very interesting book. It's all true, a true story.
Well, how do you, as an American who grew up in the States about the time of just after the Second World War, how do you deal with your German friends who, when the subject of the war comes up? I mean, clearly it doesn't come up a lot. I think we all try and avoid painful subjects, but it must come up some.
Well, it begins right at home. As I mentioned earlier, I married my wife. She's German. She was 6 years old during the war. She has her experiences and has shared them with me, things that happened to her and her family, and the villages they lived in, being bombed, and the biggest problem that most had was just surviving, finding food.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the reason I live in the town that I'm in, during the war, she would walk. It was something like 45 kilometers from where they lived to this village.
Wow.
They had people they knew here, and they would walk over the mountains and come here and work in the vineyards or do something. But anyway, they would return with sacks full of potatoes or whatever they could carry, so they would have food. And they did this also during the winter. And she tells her stories about walking, you know, at 6 years old, and carrying these sacks. And her mother couldn't see very well, and they would see a sign, and her mother would say, "What does that say?" And she would tell her, point out, "We have to go in this direction." But and then they met with the Americans who were guarding the areas and not letting them through, and taking it, things they were carrying or checking it out to make sure that it wasn't any ammunition or guns or something. But the Americans were very good to them. On the other side, the French would confiscate everything they had, and so you have a feeling of even the soldiers who were friendly and helpful. Many of even the American soldiers, they were not, they didn't look upon the Germans always as an enemy. They were people.
Mm-hmm.
Now some, you know, I said not all. I said there were some that have that. Others, if they were German, they were the enemy. You killed them. Women, children, didn't matter. But that's not true overall. There's always a balance. And you hear stories of people who lived during the war, and I get to talk about that to these people, and they share their stories with me, and it's so interesting. Uh, and it's not something that can be explained in a few minutes on an interview, but the feeling towards America has always been very positive because they helped them after the war to get back on their feet,
Right.
and they did, and they rose out of the ashes,
Mm-hmm.
literally, and women played a big role in that reconstruction. They worked.
Oh,
So many of them were widows.
yeah.
Their husbands didn't come back from the war. They're the ones that would go out for the rubble and take the things and stash it someplace so that they could rebuild. But I get back to the point again. It was survival, having a shelter, but having food, and they were going out. My wife tells me about going out through the fields and whatever was left, maybe they could find a potato or something here or there, just to take home to have some food to eat.
So maybe
Uh,
the answer in Syria is rather than being disengaging, we should engage more, bomb the hell out of the country, reduce it to rubble, and then go in and be the saviors.
that's the history of America doing that. They say, matter of fact, there was a comedy series at one time. It says we're gonna attack America. We will lose, and then they will
Right.
give us
Yes.
all kind
It
of
was a
money.
great movie with Peter Sellers, The Most
That's so.
Abroad, and I still love that movie, and it's very funny. But bottom line is, you know, there is something to be said if we could do it as well as we did it in Germany, and of course we did it in Japan. And after, not right off at first, but later on, we did it in South Korea after that country was devastated by war. We went in, and in some ways, we're much better once there's rubble. Americans seem to be very good at cleaning out rubble. Now, being a broody New Englander as I am, and having grown up surrounded by those wonderful rock walls of New England, where the farmers, in order to find enough ground so they could pasture their cow, would have to pick up granite boulders and build. I can kind of connect to that approach. I don't think, though, that that's the best way to go forward in the world. Do you, Abe?
No, I oppose war, all kinds of war. I
Okay.
don't, and I'm a veteran, but I would not, knowing what I know today and at my age, uh, even if I knew what I knew today when I was younger, I would not even have gone into the military. I don't. I cannot support war. Period. I don't believe in killing. And that's what war is. It's killing. You're supposed to go kill somebody that you don't have to you don't know them. They're just like you. They want to survive. They're protecting their country, and you're coming in and
But in the
killing
end,
them because of their leader.
yeah.
Now we have a leader that's doing all kinds of stuff. Or, if people wanted to take revenge against the American citizen because of what the leader does, is that right?
So
It's
you're
like
saying you're saying that the leaders of the world should be held in some way more accountable.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
First of all, that implies two things. One, that we can identify who the leaders are. Now, when it comes to countries, organized countries like the United States, Germany, Great Britain, whatever, Russia, it's easier to identify a leader. I'm not sure when you get to the mayhem that is modern Syria, or my friend's country of South Sudan that's in the middle of civil war, or some of the other countries of the world. I'm not sure we can even figure out who the leader is. But then, if we could, Is it possible to set up a world order in which those leaders could be held responsible and where there would be enough force, moral force, not necessarily military force, that those leaders could be taken into custody to be tried? And what happens, just to finish that thought, what happens when it isn't the leader of some small country, but it is the leader of Germany in the 1930s, or say the leader of the United States, who might equally be undesirable? And who's to decide that? Who's to decide which leaders are we to go after?
Well, there's an international court in The Hague.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, the United States is not party to it.
among other
They
things.
support it. They support it for other people to be prosecuted, but they would not support it if an American was being accused.
Nope, and I sure as hell would love to see Dick Cheney's.
But to see that there is a system in place that could make it work, like the United Nations, if they as a body would have a vote without the major powers having the veto. So that you have all these countries that say we think this is wrong, and because of some political reason, the United States, Russia, or China can say no, we won't support that.
So you're
There,
really a
there,
major supporter of internationalism in a big, big way.
I am.
Yeah, and we're
Oh
going to
yes.
come back and talk about that in one sec. And first, we're going to listen to a video.
Okay.
Welcome back, folks. You're walking on the Weene side, and my guest today is businessman, author, and expat, Abe March. Abe, we were just talking about internationalism, the role of a more active UN, and I know you said you were a strong supporter of internationalism, and I know from that you're probably pretty strongly supportive of the EU, the European Union, as one step in that direction. My question has to be, what's happening to systems like that? Well, Brexit. Let's start with Brexit. What happened? Why would a major country as part of the European Union break away and say, no, we've had enough of you?
Political. Let me give you an example. Just this past week, there was a report that there are right now over 100,000 Brits living in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
They were affected by Brexit,
Mm-hmm.
and there are hundreds of applications to become German citizens so that they can live and work here in Germany.
Right.
With the EU, they could go from one country to the other and find employment. All of a sudden, with Brexit, that's no longer permitted by law.
Yeah, and obviously,
Brexit,
those are the ones. Those folks voted to stay in the EU.
that's right.
Okay. Now the question is, however, that a lot of Britons said, no, we don't want to be part of that. So what is it? What is the counterforce to internationalism? I'm asking you, because obviously
Well,
that's a big question here in the States.
well, the word union is to bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
They have a common bond, a common goal, and with trade and whatever, with open borders between the countries, it was working. If you take the UK, they're the ones that did not sign up for the euro. The other countries did, but the UK didn't. They were separate. They wanted to hold. They wanted their cake and eat it too, so to speak. They wanted to keep the way it was, and yet have the benefits and the advantages of the EU, and it became a political thing and a power struggle. They thought perhaps that France or Germany had too much power, too much say, yet they had the Brussels, the headquarters for the EU in Brussels. Then it was a fight over who's going to have what to say, what direction it's going to go. And as I say, it was a political thing. I still think it can be salvaged, and that they're working toward that. And with the new president in France, it's going to be better than it was. The opponent would have broken it up and probably made an exit as well, because it was a very extreme right wing party.
You're talking about the French party.
Yeah, the French election, the recent one,
Yeah,
that
well,
was a very positive move.
that third of the population who voted for her represent obviously the anti-internationalist view. In Britain, it was slightly over 50%. I'm not sure what the percentage is here in the United States, but I think it had something to do, a lot to do with Donald Trump's win. So, what is it, do you think, that causes that sense of anti internationalism? And let's bring that back in a sense, too, to the Middle East. Isn't that the same thing when we talk about creating a pan Arab world, or getting all Muslims together. What is it that creates, yeah, union? And you as a businessman, I noticed one of the things is that businessmen very often, especially if they are trading across borders or living in other countries, become very much internationalists. It is built into the sense of business. You can make more money in an international world than you can in a nationalist world. But what is it that fuels the people who say, no, no, I don't want to be part of that union. I want to keep to my little country?
Well, it's a good question, and it's a complicated one. But to give an example, that the United States, they want to be more isolationist. Isolation. That's not the
Isolationist.
right.
Isolationist.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can't in today's world. It doesn't work. Whether you like it or not, you are involved internationally, whether it be with the people that make up the citizenry or you travel or whatever, you're involved internationally. Well, now, we want people to be patriotic, so to speak. Well, what is patriotism? That's another subject. But people do want to have a home that they can call, this is my home, this is my country, and I'm going to work to make it better. Well, what makes it better? um, does it mean you're going to keep by yourself and shut everybody else out? Even in the U.S., religion plays a big role. They keep saying this is a Christian country. Well, that's against the Constitution. They may say that, but they don't act it. I look at actions rather than titles. Someone says to me they're Christians. Don't tell me. Show me. If if someone is Muslim, if they follow their religion, and I studied that. There's very little difference when it really comes down to it, but it's the extremists that make it all bad.
I have the feeling. I get the feeling I've thrown you a very difficult question.
It's the fundamentalists in any religion that create the
Patriotism
problem.
is a form of fundamentalism. I think that's what you're trying to say. Patriotism is a form of fundamentalism. It's the same kind of thinking.
That's true. That's true.
And with that,
And when you say America first, well, that's isolationist talk.
Of course it is, and it is the same. It is the same basic issue. Uh, Folks, we've been talking with Abe March. It's been a delight having you on, Abe. As we're running out of time, I just want you to tell people again the title of the books that they can buy your books on Amazon.
First American Back, and I would also and the plot of revenge against America, which has to do with the Iraq War. Herman Fresh, On the Way to Siberia, if you want to know something about the Second World War and the Hitler Youth. Those are basic. I have.
Great.
There's another book which is a romance novel, Journey into the Past, that has to do with the medieval castles in the area where I live.
Of course, folks, if you go to Amazon, you'll find, and you look for Abe March, you'll find all of the books listed under his author page. But Abe, thanks again for joining us on Walking on the Weene Side.
Thank you very much.
Sing with my stockings.
Take a look at yourself. What have you become? Are you all that you aim to be? or just another bum drinking for fun? A dream or a reality? Does it seem how it seems? Make your choice, do your dance. Get up and get off the floor. Pick it up and lay it down. Another show, another town. Is it all that you want it to be? This is me. This is all I want it to be. This is me. This is all I wanted. It's all I wanted. This is me. What have you become? Do the nights wake you up in the day? Do you feel guilt inside from hitching that ride to this place you wanted to see? Getting deep, needing sleep, road again never ends. You feel like a scream and a shout. Packing up, setting out, seems you're stuck with a rack of a mountain of music to be. This is me. This is all I wanted to be. This is me, yeah. This is all I wanted. It's all I wanted. This is me. This is me.